When the life I built came crashing to the ground, when the friends I had were nowhere to be found, I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now. There was Jesus. So good to come your way again this week with this Jesus. I trust you were blessed by the previous series we did on the mandate. If you haven't watched it, please just go to the channel This Jesus on YouTube and then watch the previous videos on the mandate. And if you're watching on Facebook, just go to This Jesus on Facebook and then watch the mandate. Watch all the episodes in the series The Mandate. Today, I'm going to start a new series, and this series is entitled Dealing with Disappointment. Dealing with Disappointment. And today we're looking at dealing with disappointment, the part 1, first part. And we're looking at Moses. Come with me into the book of Exodus chapter 2, verse 11 to 15. Exodus chapter 2, verse 11 to 15. One day, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, behold, 2 Hebrews were struggling together. And he said to the man in the wrong, "Why do you strike your companion?" He answered, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "Surely the thing is known." When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. The shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and saved them and watered their flock. Then I skip to verse 21. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah. She gave birth to a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a sojourner in a foreign land." Amen. There's a very interesting story about Moses. And there are a couple of things that we see in the story. The first thing is there's a lot of injustice in the world. It's very important to understand this, that there's a lot of injustice in the world. A lot of people are not being treated fairly. A lot of people are being cheated on and being treated very badly. And it's something that we have to know exists in this world. It was there in the time of Moses. It still exists. But that doesn't mean that knowing this means we should accept it as the norm. No. And so one thing that we also learn from this is the fact that people and circumstances bring disappointment. People and circumstances. The Hebrews found themselves in a circumstance of being slaves to the Egyptians, and they brought a lot of disappointment to them. I can imagine Moses, when he was 40 years, I can imagine him. He was raised by Hebrews, by his mother and his sister, and he knew he was a Hebrew. Yet, he was also a prince. He was the daughter of Pharaoh. And I believe he had a lot of identity issues, being a Hebrew at the same time being an Egyptian. Being raised by a Hebrew woman in, I don't want to say poverty, but around people who were slaves. And at the same time also at a point being raised by the princess of the land. He had all these things playing in his mind. And that's why when he saw the Egyptian strike the Hebrew, he was mad and he killed the Egyptian. Because he was struggling with some things in his mind, identity crisis. How can I be a Hebrew at the same time still be an Egyptian, prince? And he had a very soft heart for the Hebrews, and he killed the Egyptian. So people and circumstances often disappoint us. And the last thing that we learn from this passage is the fact that, you see, people watch what we do. People watch what we do. So you have to be very careful what you do. People are watching. Moses thought nobody saw him kill the Egyptian. But even his own Hebrew people that he was interested in helping, they saw what he did. And eventually Pharaoh heard about it and wanted to kill Moses. What are we supposed to do when we are disappointed? What are we supposed to do? You see, the first thing is you are supposed to accept the reality. A lot of my Nigerian friends, a lot of Nigerian youth voted for Peter Obi to win the elections, right? They had a lot of hope in him. But the reality is he didn't win the elections. It doesn't matter how the election was conducted. The reality is he's not the next president of Nigeria. It's going to be the old man Tinubu. He's going to be the next president of Nigeria. And I know a lot of Nigerian young people are disappointed. But hey, you have to accept the reality, that what you wanted is not what is happening now. So that's the first thing in dealing with disappointment. Moses ran. He fled from the king. I mean, imagine one man fleeing from an entire nation. He had to go as far as he could. And he fled. And that was the reality. He came to sit by a well. I mean, he moved from living in the palace to living in the wilderness. That was his reality. He had to accept it. And the next thing that we are supposed to do when we face disappointment is to go to God. Where go to God also means go to a place of life. Why is it that Moses went to sit by a well? He went to sit by a well because he believed people would come there to draw water. Water is life. I don't know if he had anything on him with which he was going to be able to draw water. But he came to a place of life. He came to a place where he could meet people who want life. Go to God when you are disappointed. Just go to God. Take your disappointment to God. Pray, go to church, go to a place where you can meet other people to encourage you. It's really important. And the next thing that we're supposed to do when we are disappointed is to help others. You see, this fugitive Moses, who was a prince, who was running from the king, came to sit by a well. And when the daughters of the priest came and they were chased away, because Moses was a prince and he was strong, he was able to defend these young ladies. He helped complete strangers. And guess what? He was rewarded with one of the women of this priest. Just an act of kindness, even in his disappointment, led to bringing some kind of stability to his life. So I want to encourage you. I don't know what disappointment you're facing. We just finished Valentine's Day like 3-4 weeks ago. I don't know what you're going through. Maybe you broke up with your spouse, with your fiancé or boyfriend or whatever. You might even be in the middle of a divorce, but accept whatever reality you are facing. Accept the disappointment you're facing. Go to God and seek to help others. Thank you so much for joining me on This Jesus. Looking forward to seeing you next week. God bless you. Please share this video with others. Bye.